Chapter 25. After all the planning and playing out scenarios in her mind, Sharmelle was stuck. She didn't know what to do. Go to the Pierce house and tell them why she's in Detroit? That would most likely end in disaster. But did she need to make a move at all right now? The obvious next step would be to call Etta Hayes to let her know she'd found her long-lost love. But right now that wasn't possible. She'd need to wait for First Lady Hayes to get better. And then Sharmelle realized she had failed to ask a question that could be critical to the fallout from the discovery of Marcus Pierce. "Mrs. Nix, the Pierces, did they have any children?" "Oh, yes, 2 daughters. She had them later in life. She was in her 40s, so they were both spoiled, but quite accomplished young ladies. I remember Angie was always talking about how Marcus wanted a son one day, but he got 2 girls. One of them is a lawyer here in Detroit. Not sure about the other one. I think she moved away." Always wanted a son. Sharmelle got a knot in her stomach when she heard that. And he has one, she thought, but couldn't speak that since Carl and Addie Nix held a wealth of information, but had no idea exactly why she was so desperate to track down Marcus. Curiosity got the best of her, so she agreed to a drive-by with Mrs. Nix. "We're not getting out of the car. No confrontations, no conversations. I just want to see the house," Sharmelle said as they walked to the car. "I understand," Addie Nix said. Sharmelle guessed Mrs. Nix had no reason today to confront the woman who once had an affair with her husband anyway. On the 35-minute drive, Sharmelle thought about backing out at least a dozen times. The whole situation was a bit ridiculous. She was reminded of the time she and W2 rode by their high school boyfriends' houses, never stopping, just spying to see if they'd by some chance catch them outside. "We're getting close. This is the neighborhood," Addie Nix said, the first word she had spoken in the last half hour. Sharmelle thought about how nothing in this day seemed normal, except for the Pierce neighborhood. Large, mature trees, well-kept yards, sidewalks, all the things that personified a suburb just outside a major city. There it is," Addie Nix said. "The gray house with the black Lincoln Navigator in the driveway." Addie slowed down to give Sharmelle a good look at the home, where the man she's been trying to track down lives. And like those high school boyfriends, he was not outside either. Sharmelle wasn't sure anything about this secret mission had advanced the case, but she felt something had been accomplished, even though she couldn't quite articulate what it was. On the way back to the hotel, Addie made an effort at small talk by pointing out some Detroit landmarks they saw along the way. Sharmelle realized it was an attempt not to repeat the awkwardness they endured on the ride to the Pierce neighborhood. Sharmelle was relieved to be back at the hotel and in her room after thanking Addie Nix for the ride, for her confession, and the information. She sank into the oversized chair in her room and allowed herself to feel the warm glow of the sun streaming into her room. She felt at peace in a way she hadn't since that first meeting with Etta Hayes. She had solved much of the case. She hadn't laid eyes on him, but she was sure she had found Marcus Pierce. She put a mental check note by Phase 1. But in order to proceed with Phase 2, she needed Etta Hayes to make the decision about what to do next, how to approach Marcus Pierce with the news that he has a son, and does he want to meet him? She was trying to decide what to tell Liz when they met for dinner later in the day. Without Liz's help, she would not be as far along on the case as she was at this point. But Liz was still angry that Lieutenant Nix had not come clean with her about his relationship with Angie until now, and she didn't know that Mrs. Nix has known about it all these years. "This case is getting messier by the day," Sharmelle sighed. She was still trying to wrap her head around the relationship between Addie Nix and Angie Pierce. "Your hairstylist is having an affair with your husband, and her salon burns to the ground," Sharmelle said out loud in her hotel room. "Sure, nothing strange about that. Nothing strange at all." The timing of the fire had Sharmelle suspicious. "It's just too much of a coincidence," she thought. Lieutenant Nix is the one who laid out the story about the arsonist, but he had proven himself to be not entirely truthful of late. Sharmelle took out her legal pad and started a Phase 2 column and wrote fire under the heading. Checking out next. Maybe the real arsonist was caught, but Sharmelle felt that something was telling her to make sure. She was thinking of several other things to add to the list, But first she knew she needed to check in at home and get an update on First Lady Hayes. Her mother picked up on the second ring, of course. Well, I'm glad to know you're still alive. Nancy Drew will be happy to know she's not an orphan. Mom, you are too much. This trip has been crazy, but I got a big break in the case. But I wanted to check in while I had a few minutes and see how First Lady is doing. It's truly a miracle. God keeps answering our prayers. Pastor McCurdy talked to Lucian earlier this morning and updated us on the church leadership call. The doctors are still amazed at her progress. Again, there appears to be no permanent damage, and she's getting stronger every day. They think she may come home in the next day or two. They've asked us to limit visits, though, because 100 of us would show up at one time. But Lucian said it would be okay if we called her once she gets home. He just wants to make sure she gets her rest. This procedure is a bit more serious for her because she's in her 80s. And she'll be going home with them, right? Oh, yes. She wanted to go to her own home, and I don't blame her, but it might be a while before Lucian and Cecilia are comfortable letting her live on her own again. Okay, well, I just wanted to check in, and so your mystery trip has been successful? Mom, you just never stop. Yes, my business trip has been quite successful, and I'll be headed home tomorrow. Lyra or Cassius will be picking me up from the airport, so I'll see you and Daddy tomorrow afternoon. Okay, my favorite woman of mystery, I'll see you tomorrow. Sharmelle thought about how her mother could be amusing and exasperating at the same time, and she smiled. She made her reservations for her flight home tomorrow and sent group texts to Cassius and Lyra to make sure one of them would be picking her up from the airport. Cassius responded with, I got you, sis. Your chariot will be awaiting and on time. Lyra responded with, Safe travels, see you tomorrow, and meet me at the station during my dinner break and we can catch up over dinner. She loved how Lyra just assumed she would be available and didn't have plans. She didn't, though. Now Sharmelle was faced with how to respond to King's 5 text messages, asking how she was doing and how her trip was going. She decided to be generic and just say she'd been busy, things were going well, and she was planning to return home tomorrow. It didn't take him long to respond with, Glad to hear it's going well. Let's catch up when you get back. She sent back the thumbs up emoji. She made a call to W2 and got voicemail, then checked in with Jacqueline, who gave her a rundown of all business matters, which she handled with her usual expertise. Sharmelle was feeling bad that she dumped so much work responsibilities on Jacqueline since the Hayes case came along, and made a mental note to do something extra for her, something real extra. She had a few moments before meeting Liz for their late lunch, early dinner, and she was still struggling with what details she would now share about the people behind this case. But it didn't feel right to withhold any information from her now. Liz was actually the break in the case. Without Liz, Sharmelle knew she might still be spinning her wheels, trying to find every man in the state of Michigan named Marcus Pierce. She also knew once she told Liz about her surprise visit from Addie Nix, Detective Liz would have 1 million questions. Sharmelle was not wrong. Liz asked her to meet at Detroit Soul, and they arrived at the same time. Hey, perfect timing, Liz said. Before we go in, I have some news to share with you. Major news, as my sister would say, breaking news. Liz laughed. Girl, stop being so dramatic. What is it? Addie Nix came to see me this morning. Came to see you where? Liz was almost shouting. She showed up at my hotel room at the butt crack of dawn, 7 o'clock. What? Why? What does she want? I'll give you details when we get inside, but here are the highlights. She knows about the affair. She's known all along. And she knows where Angie and Marcus Pierce live right now. She drove me by their house.